two, one. We are live for a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wincham. How are you doing this week, Seth?
I'm good.
All right, now I can actually talk to you this week. We had some issues with the live broadcast last week, but looks like the internet situation is a little bit easier this week, and the StreamYard stuff is always pretty heavy on the on the internet. I don't know why like when we have like Zoom calls and everything, it's fine, but StreamYard, not so much. But we're back to our regular show this week. Let me mute my notification right now so that I can focus entirely on the show. All right. We're going to start out by a new Cybertruck being launched this week. I was very excited about it for a good half a day because after half a day, Elon already canceled it, or sort of. So for those of you that haven't followed, last night Tesla updated its online configurator for the Cybertruck and launched a new all-wheel drive Cybertruck at $60,000, starting at $60,000. So compared to the $70,000 rear-wheel drive Cybertruck that was decontented, it was when Tesla launched it last year, right away said this is not going to work. It's going to be canceled very soon. And sure enough, I think it was only online for about 4 months before Tesla canceled the vehicle because it didn't have suspension, tonneau cover, or at least mechanical tonneau cover. Like you had to manually open it. It didn't have the outlets in the back. It didn't. It was like crazy. They contented a smaller range too. Everything didn't make sense for just a $10,000 difference in price. Now we have a $20,000 difference in price, and all of these features, except for the active air suspension, are still in there, which I think is a giant difference maker here. The range is also adjusted, though. It's 325 miles, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 325 miles. So the two main things you're losing here is the a little bit of range and the air suspension for $60,000, which, it's not the $40,000 that Elon Tesla originally announced was a Cybertruck, but it's getting closer to the ballpark at least. So I wasn't going to say that this is going to save the Cybertruck program or anything like that. For those who don't know, the Cybertruck is selling as of last quarter at about 5,000 units a quarter. That's, roughly 20,000 units a year. Tesla had planned for a capacity Gigafactory Texas of about 250,000 a year. So when you're running about less than 10% of your production capacity, normally a vehicle program doesn't survive on that because it just doesn't make sense. You're underutilizing your productive assets, and it get canceled. Though we do suspect that Tesla is going to try a lot of things before canceling that, just because it makes Elon look so bad
Right.
that the Cybertruck program will come, because he's been the champion of that vehicle program. But then what happened next? It's Elon on Twitter ended up sending out a tweet. He quote tweeted Wes Morrill, who's the head engineer on the Cybertruck program. Wes had just announced Cybertruck now start at $60,000 instead of $80,000. And then Elon responded with only for the next 10 days. No follow-up, nothing else. So what does only for the next 10 days means? Is it because West's tweet was specifically mentioning the price of but it's also a new trim, even though there's already an all-wheel drive Cybertruck. It's there's less range, there's no air suspension. It's a different trim. So does it mean that this is only the price for the next 10 days, or is this version of the Cybertruck only going to exist for 10 days? We don't know. And I do have some theories, and I'd like to know your take on it. So this is very close to the existing Cybertruck. So meaning that Tesla doesn't have to do much to do it to make this truck different. We don't even know if the battery pack is different. It might just be software locked. Tesla has done that before. So maybe a different battery pack, maybe not. just the air suspension is the main thing. But the air suspension, for those who don't know, so this is active damping like the other one. So it's a fairly small modification to make, even though it can have a big impact. But it's in terms of the production process, it's not that big of a deal. So my take on it, I see two potential things happening. Well, one main thing, I think Tesla is trying to reduce inventory, so it's trying to not finish inventory, because this is obviously a new vehicles that they're building, but maybe that they have a certain quantities of Cybertruck parts that they want to finish and then sell out to either end the production of the Cybertruck or to get rid of what they have now for a potential refresh of the Cybertruck program, because it badly needs something. Like if you want to keep it alive, you have to do something bigger than this change here. So I think it's one of those. What do you think?
I mean, is it possible that these are just software locked? Like they they pulled some of the battery capacity, they pulled the air suspension.
Yeah, even the air suspension could be software lock. You're right.
Right. So is it possible that they're just taking inventory from somewhere, much more expensive vehicles, locking up some of the features and selling them at a discount, and then those people that buy them, hey, unlock the rest of your battery, unlock your suspension for a
The
price.
only thing that would point not to that is the delivery dates. They talk about June, I think June. So that would point to new production.
Right. Unless they're just tweaking the software to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is weird that they've included so the standard build that in this, and an all-wheel drive, especially for $60K, is actually a pretty good price. When they were talking $40K for the rear-wheel drive, however, like 55 years ago when they announced this thing. So $60,000 for a all-wheel drive Cybertruck is actually kind of close to what they were originally promising.
Yeah, it's the same ballpark. It's a similar ballpark. It's not, well, I mean, obviously they would sell a lot more at 40,000, but you're right, for the specs, for the features,
yep,
you could argue it's the ballpark. And then the biggest comparison, obviously, is between the previous and still current all-wheel drive version. $20,000 difference for the suspension, a little bit more range, is not that big of a deal, quite obviously. So there's something going on here. It's just not clear what it is, and obviously Tesla is not saying anything. But I don't think it's helping the program much. So because even the situation is kind of putting buyers in a when you're spending $80,000 on a truck, resale value is also important. So you want to know, like, what's happening with the program right now. Is just this? Is the trims going to still exist next quarter or Q3, or is it just a pricing situation? It could be Tesla just trying to like boost demand for the Cybertruck short term with sort of kind of discount to create urgency within the next 10 days. We don't know. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's more like inventory related. Tesla is trying to get rid of some inventory of the parts level, and then something is going to happen, maybe not in 10 days, but by the time they produce all of these and deliver them, which sounds like it's going to be June. So maybe in the second half of the year, we see either the end of the program. I'm less likely on that, just because of, I think it would be a big fail for Elon, and he wouldn't really take that. Or a refresh. Just how much refresh can you put in a program that's like not even 3 years old at this point? I don't know. But one thing is sure is that you need it, because it's just not working right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yep. We'll keep you guys updated. Then we have a couple of news that we're going to discuss related to Tesla's autonomy effort, because that's mostly what Tesla is doing these days. It's related to autonomy. First off, big news on the first Tesla Autopilot fatal accident liability case. that happened in Florida last year. Tesla, for the first time, went to trial on a fatal case involving a crash of on autopilot, and was found 33% liable for it. And the victims were awarded $243 million. And yeah, it was really an historic case because it is the first time that Tesla went to trial over such case. Before that, Tesla had them dismissed, or in one case they did a settlement, and Tesla was prior to that not prone to do settlements. But then after the first judgment, we saw a series of similar cases from 2018 to 2020, crashes that it takes a lot of time to go through the entire court process, being settled by Tesla. So this case completely changed the game regarding Tesla's liability in court regarding crashes related to its advanced driver assist system, specifically Autopilot, because of the timing, FSD launched in late 2020, and most of these cases are about crashes that are older than that. But now, the $243 million judgment, Tesla went to ask a federal court to overturn it. And today, the judge, Beth Bloom in Miami, thrown the case away, saying that Tesla wasn't adding any new arguments that justify setting the case aside. There's still an appeal process that's possible, but it's becoming obviously harder for Tesla. They are quickly exhausting their way to avoid paying this $243 million settlement. This is a big deal. Like Sid and I were talking about it today. I'm going through all the NHTSA crash information right now from Tesla's ADAS system. Is like we're just seeing the peak of the iceberg here, because, like I said, most of the crashes, based on the data we have, happened after 2020. So 2021, 2022, 2023. The most amount of crashes were in 2024 and 2025, and then we're just not even 2 months into 2026, and there's already a bunch of them. So these, not all of them, because I'm sure some of them Tesla is clearly not responsible. And sometimes people crash into a Tesla that's self-driving or on autopilot or FSD, I should say, because it's not really self-driving, and there's no responsibility. But in some of those cases, like this one, even though and what's crazy about this one, like obviously the stakes were high. Someone died that was outside of the car. It was not related to the Tesla driver, and someone else was gravely injured. So obviously that. But in terms of the liability that Tesla has, which was only 33% of the liability, which I think is fair, honestly, because the driver was also clearly at fault. But the driver was using autopilot, dropped their phone, meaning they were using their phone on autopilot, and was reaching down to grab their phone, and as they were doing so, they ran a red light and or blinking light, and crashed into the victims' vehicles and the victims. So the main development with this case and the jury verdict is that the Tesla was liable, one, because autopilot was claimed to have emergency braking system that should have detected the crash and should have activated. Two, Tesla, based on what Tesla was communicating to customer, shouldn't even have been able to activate autopilot in these specific roads, since it was supposed to be a highway system. And three, Tesla was also found to have misled customers into thinking that they could not pay as much attention in this, even though it was kind of using the contrast between what Tesla is saying in its user manuals and its alerts to the customer versus what Tesla is saying to in its marketing effort. So those two have been quite a bit contrasted, and that led to the situation with the customers here. And now you can apply that to a bunch of other cases, literally hundreds of them, potentially even thousands of them. And that the liability here, like, I'm still working through all this data, but I think it's minimum in the billions of dollars, potentially in the tens of billions of dollars. It's absolutely huge. Moving on, Tesla announced this week that they started production of the Cybercab even though we're not sure it's going to be called Cybercab because of the previous trademark issues that we discussed. But for now, we'll call it Cybercab. They said that the first one rolled off the production line in Gigafactory, Texas. Now, it doesn't mean that continuous production is starting. That's not expected until April. Even Elon Musk said that the ramp up is going to be very slow. But the first one is being produced, even though Tesla has not solved autonomy yet, which is the craziest part here, is that they're producing. There's sort of starting slowly production of a steering wheel less, pedal less vehicle without having solved autonomy yet. But my argument on that set, I think that is very interesting, is that this is like the most blatant case of Tesla putting the cart in front of the horse, but it's not the first one when it comes to autonomy. Like we've seen this happen with Tesla many times before, with the removing of the stalk, whether it be the turn signal stalk or the drive gear stalk. Tesla said at the time that they were doing this because of autonomy, like the autonomy is around the corner. You don't really need those if it's autonomous. And then they backtracked on that specifically for the turning signal stock, but also and to some degree for the drive gear. And the yoke steering wheel is also a very similar situation. Like unless you put drive-by steering like in the Cybertruck, it's steer by wire like in the Cybertruck. It doesn't really make much sense to have a yoke steering wheel. You kind of need to have the somewhere, like if you're gonna do full turn on the ratio with the steering wheel, doesn't make sense. But Tesla has a clear tendency of doing these hardware changes first and then hoping that autonomy happens, and this is no different. I don't know. So do you remember when they unveiled the Cybercab in the We Robot event in 2024? MKBHD did a little video on it and said that he was going to shave his head if Tesla would deliver this car for $30,000 or less to consumers by 2027.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet, I think.
Pretty safe bet.
No, I mean at $20,000, that's not going to happen, obviously. But the bigger thing is like they're going to have all these cars without steering wheels, and the software is not going to be safe enough to run. And I guess they could still have follow vehicles. I don't know what they're going to do with all these steering wheelless vehicles while they're fixing their software.
Yeah, my take on this is that these are entering production and could be used in Tesla's pilot robotaxi programs, whether it be trading cars or remote operation. I think it's feasible right now, but the MKBHD bet was specifically about delivering this to consumer vehicles, and I think that's what brought the most headlines when Tesla unveiled these. Is like a lot of people thought they would be the Model 2s that they were expecting, the cheaper $30,000 Tesla. It's like, oh, that could be it. And Elon sort of hinted at that by saying that we're going to sell them to consumers for $30,000 or less. And but he specifically said that as in you're going to have it use it in the robotaxi fleet. Like it's going to be your personal robotaxi. But now that they entered production, a lot of the Tesla fans were like, oh, MKBHD is going to have to shave his head. And then Elon got involved too and says, yeah, it's going to happen. By the end of this year, we're going to deliver that to consumers. Which I think it's probably the biggest relief for MKBHD that Elon actually says that, because if you track Elon's prediction, and especially the end of the year ones when it comes to autonomy, it just never happens. Like the only thing, like everyone that's hoping to see Marquez's bear cranium, I think the only hope you can have is that maybe just to prove Elon right, they deliver a few of these to like hardcore Tesla fan in Austin, and then they tell them you can only drive them in the same geofence area as the robotaxi in Austin with the same software that's running on the existing robotaxi there, and that's it. Which I think would be nuts. Like would be just purely an optic win and no real value. Again, it would be have to be delivered to some hardcore fans that just don't care about
So you're
owning
saying
30.
it would be nuts. It would just be for optics and just the hardcore fans. You're basically guaranteeing they're doing it. That's like,
Yeah, I just convinced myself by saying that. You're right. I just convinced myself that they could do it, but I mean, no. So my point is like they could do it like that. But if I was MKBHD and I'm not, I would not shave my head if they do that, because like obviously it's quite the stretch if they do that. It's like it's not in the spirit of the bet that
right.
Tesla would deliver a true unsupervised self-driving vehicle to consumer by the end of the year. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that did that. Oh yeah, I had a nice little just for engage. AI is good at something. Sorry, Marcus. Um, the other big news this week when it comes to FSD is now Tesla. Even though Tesla lost we reported on that in December, the case with the California DMV about how misleading autopilot and full self driving were. They the still avoided the punitive damage that come with that case, which was a 30-day ban, a minimum of 30-day ban in their California sales, because Tesla is now fully dropping autopilot from its marketing, and full self-driving has now been completely changed to supervise full self-driving. And now with the end of Tesla selling full self-driving uh, as a package that in the future will become unsupervised. Now it's just a subscription based, so there's no promise of update. Well, they tell you that they're going to update it, but you're paying for what you get right now, so there's no promise of you don't pay for a future unsupervised version. They they avoid they comply now to the request of California's DMV to stop misleading people into thinking that they're buying a full self-driving vehicle or something that will become unsupervised full self-driving. So it's good for Tesla to avoid that, and a lot of the Tesla fans took this as a win. But at the core of it, Tesla had to make some really significant changes because of this case. So I think it's overall good. It's one of the rare regulators out there that's actually pushing Tesla to do better right now. So I'm gonna give this as a win for the California DMV for this one. And I mean, I was pretty confident too that they would comply, because having a 30-day sales ban for Tesla in California, by far the biggest market in the U.S. where Tesla is, I don't think they would even consider that. All right, we have four more pieces of news that we want to discuss right now, and then we're going to jump into the comment section. So if you guys have comments, questions for us, you can put them in the comment section right now, whether it is on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, whatever. We're going to take your comments in just a few minutes. But the next one we'll discuss. Oh yeah, this is a big one. So this is also with California, but this time with the California Public Utilities Commission, which has the oversight over the self-driving permits there. And this is one of the best way to really track through progress for Tesla's full self-driving level 4 on supervised levels, because California has pretty strict laws there. So for those that have been following, like in Texas, it's free for all basically. There's some regulators, but it's minimal, and that's what allowed Tesla to run their service right now with the supervisor in the passenger seat or in a training car or in a kind of call center somewhere. But in California, Tesla is not doing that, because if they do that, they need to classify their vehicle as level 4. They need to share the data about their vehicle, disengagement rate, crash rate, and everything. And they simply don't want to do that, or they're not. And then you have to ask why they don't want to do that. And the only reason they want to do that is because it would make them look awful, obviously. But they are still actively lobbying and commenting on proposed laws to change the regulations in California. And there's kind of a regulatory battle now between Tesla and Waymo there. Waymo basically wants to distance itself as much as possible from what Tesla is doing, meaning that Tesla likes to be compared to Waymo because it looks good for them, but and they claim to be competing with them. But Waymo is like, we need to differentiate Tesla's robotaxi, which shouldn't even be called robotaxi according to Waymo, because it's a level 2 system, and our level 4 system. So Tesla is arguing with that, and the arguments in the last filing this week were very interesting, where they use the example of the December blackouts that was in San Francisco where they're operating, and they're like, look, our system is better than Waymo's because we were able to keep operating the blackout while Waymo's couldn't. But then you look at the reasons that they gave for that, which are kind of obvious when you think about it, is that they're not autonomous vehicles. It's not an autonomous robotaxi service. There are drivers behind the wheel, and that's because the drivers are behind the wheels that they were able to keep operating during that day. So the reason that Waymo couldn't operate anymore is that Waymo does use remote operator. They call it remote assistant operator because they're not actually controlling the vehicles, but in certain edge cases, the vehicle asks the operator to look at the situation and take a decision for them. And in the case of the blackout, with a lot of the lights not working anymore, they had to tell them whether they could go or not in some intersection because of it. And since the entire, I don't know if it was the entire city, but a large portion of the city had this problem, and there's a big Waymo fleet there, they had not enough capacity of those remote assistant operator to keep the operation going smoothly. Meanwhile, Tesla, they just had to take the wheels, the people that were behind the wheels, and do it. So Tesla basically makes the argument that their system is better because of that, but at the same time, they have to concede that it's not an autonomous system. So basically, the problem with Tesla's filing there is that they're trying to make the argument that they have a better system at the level 2 level, which I don't think anyone is making a counter argument to that, because they do claim, by the way, to use, obviously, drivers. They're not supervisors, by the way. In Tesla's filings, they refer to them as drivers in the driver's seat, and also remote operators. They do also use remote operator, which they pride themselves. Apparently, Waymo use some of them that are outside the U.S., and Tesla says that they're only using people in the U.S. with driver's license in the U.S. But basically, Tesla wants to market the system as autonomous at the marketing level, but the regulatory level, they want to clearly be level 2 for the reasons that I previously mentioned. And so the spat right now is mostly about Waymo wanted to have a distinction between the two at the marketing level, and Tesla says, people know what they're getting into. And I don't know that that's a really good argument, because Tesla, the only place that Tesla is making this argument is in those filings. Everywhere else, if you go on X and you look at Elon Musk and Tesla's points on this, they refer to it as a robotaxi. I think the only other place that I've seen them more clearly listing the San Francisco Bay Area stuff, and not as robotaxi, is in the earnings report. In their earnings report, they do reference it as a ride-hailing system, which tells you a lot. If in the regulatory filing and earnings report, places that are subject to more scrutiny from regulators, especially like the SEC, and in this case the CPUC, that's probably what the marketing should be based on, not something else. We posted the whole filing on Electrek if you guys want to check out because everything I just said is basically just from Tesla's own words. Moving on, Ford is apparently, according to reports, making the argument with the Trump administration that Chinese EV technology should come to the US. In what form exactly? That's less clear, but the way that I read the report, which from Bloomberg, they kind of making the argument that China made in the early days of foreign automakers coming to China, and now Canada doing the same thing with China, is they want to partner with, they want Chinese automakers to come to the US and partner with American automakers to learn from them. Ford CEO Jim Farley has been quite clear that he's been more than impressed really by Chinese EV technology, and he started a whole program, a little short program at Ford to probably not replicate the technology is not like probably the right word, but it's pretty close to that. They want to have similar technology that's cheap but high tech also, to create cheaper electric vehicles in the U.S. But they are quite open about the fact that Chinese expertise would be very useful with that. Now, I don't think that the report mentioned much about the Trump response there or the Trump administration response, but I think we can guess what it was, Seth, right?
Yeah, Trump's pretty predictable.
You're probably not very open to it,
Yeah.
based on what on existing um, Chinese and U.S. relationship lately. We learned from Slate this week. Slate, the Jeff Bezos backed electric small pickup truck company, that they plan to announce their exact pricing in June, and that the base version of the truck is still expected to start in the mid $20,000 range. So maybe 25 to 27, something like that would be interesting. Um, Slate is going with a very the blank approach is right. It's a very blank Slate truck. It's I don't think that we have much spec yet, but it's you can expect a decent range, all electric range, with a lot of customization available after the fact, so you can buy the truck and then customize it after. But it's also a very it's a small size truck, and the idea is to kind of do a bit of what Ford wants to do at the higher range Chinese EV style in the $30,000 range, but even cheaper and more bare-born. How do you feel about Slate? Are you excited at all, or are you just wait
Well,
until you can see it?
it's a new company, so it does take a while to spool up. It's not even like a new company like Scout is a new company, coming from a Volkswagen expertise, and so look at Rivian, like look how long it took Rivian to kind of spool up, and then you
Mhm.
also have to consider like, all right, Ford is looking at this and saying, oh, all we have to do is release a Maverick that's very configurable and very modular. That's let's spend a few months and build one of those. Like it feels like other companies could build something similar. But that being said, it's like I've seen so much social media hype, like it's gotten a lot of hype. So if nothing else, it's waking up the market to a product that very well would be, a blockbuster. So hopefully, the other companies are seeing this and saying, okay, let's build this. And then also hopefully Slate can get something together pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Obviously, the U.S. is falling behind when it comes to electrification, and it does seem that this well, part of the solution to the problem is finding a way. So I guess it's not really a solution, but it's a direction towards a solution. Is finding a way to electrify the pickup market in the U.S. So if you don't electrify the pickup market in the U.S., you won't electrify the U.S. market unless you can change buying habits at a higher level in the US, which is most of the time more difficult than trying to solve it at the product level. So yeah, at least it's one more potential solution. So I'm all for it. Let's see if they can make an impact with it.
Yep.
All right, the last piece of news before we jump into the comment section is from Polestar. So I'm actually gonna test out a few Polestar next week. I don't know how much I can say about that, so I won't go into details. But in 2 weeks maybe I'm gonna have something for you about that. But they announced this week they wanted to remind us that company is still going strong because the stock is not doing well when it comes to Polestar. And there's always this it's backed by a big company, obviously, with Geely. I always forget how you pronounce that.
I think
But
it's Geely.
Geely, okay. With Geely, so there's always a chance that they stop supporting it. But so far, so good. So far, they seem to be behind it, and this is another example of it that they say that they are releasing 4 new models in the next 3 years. Though the one of them is a refresh of the Polestar 2. So not entirely new model, but mostly new model. So you have the Polestar 5 customer delivery that are starting. And then in Q4, you have the new long roof variant of the Polestar 4. So again, not completely new models yet. And then you have the Polestar 7 SUV that's going to come in 2028. They are already at 190,000 cars sold since reviving the brand. So that's something to be proud of. And when I drove the Polestar 4, I was quite impressed by it. I really like the vehicle. It's just it's a revive of the brand, so it's not exactly a new brand, but it's new for most people. And at that price range, it's sometimes it's tough to find yourself a place in the market when you have to shell out like high five figures for new electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with Polestar is that people see that they're very similar to Volvos, and Volvo's got a more established brand. So why not just get the Volvo version? But now I think they're differentiating themselves a little bit more. So that's
Yeah, and the
good.
design of Volvo are already pretty good. And I think they're just a little more aggressive, a little bit more fun at Polestar.
Sporty, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, not a lot of comments yet, but there is still time to jump in there. So if anybody has a comment, please add. Rob Blick 685 says, I love the Ford Blue Cruise on my Mach E. I won't have a car without it now. So I'm stunned by Tesla's decision to eliminate autopilot, and robo-taxis are 4 times worse than human drivers. Crying, laughing emoji.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've been a while since I've used Blue Cruise. Uh, my last Mackie test drive was probably 2 years ago, so I don't know how much it has improved lately. Have you got some times with the Blue Cruise in last year?
It's been a while. I haven't.
Mhm.
What did I have last? I think it was a F-150 Lightning with Blue
Mhm.
Cruise, maybe about a year and a half ago.
The good news for people who don't know, we haven't really announced it yet, but we have a new effort for more in-depth reviews at Electrek, and we have first ones should come out in the next week or so, and then we're gonna have a good pace of reviews coming out. And Ford is not in the list just yet, but I'm sure it should be soon. And we're gonna give you a lot more details and a deep dive into all of these different ADAS systems, such as Blue Cruise.
All right, Ian Smith says, what are your thoughts on the Ford worker who heckled Trump receiving no reprimand from the company or the UAW? One aspect that the media overlooks about this incident is that, that it wasn't really his fault. Trump actually became enraged when he realized the 14-year-old escort they had scheduled him to see was an automobile. All right, we got Ben.
Okay, funny one, Ian. First, I don't think there was no repercussion from the company or
I think
UAW.
he
I
got
think
fired.
he was suspended. I don't know if he was fired, but I know he was suspended. I do know that he raised like $800,000 on GoFundMe. So
Best thing he ever
even
did.
if, yeah, probably even if he got fired, he's not a problem for him, I think.
Here's a question. Has anyone tested a Tesla Semi with an electric assisted trailer? What are your thoughts on combining an electric semi truck and an electric assisted trailer? I don't know why you would do something like that, because the Tesla semis have quite a bit of battery already, and they have assisted trailers for like campers, um, which are nice because a typical EV isn't really built to carry a camper, but the
Hmm.
Tesla Semi is. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense for the most part. I'm sure you can name a bunch of specific scenarios that it makes sense for specific trucking applications, but in general, uh, your weight, total weight, is important. There's in the U.S. There is now a $2,000 £2,000 £2,000 exemption for electric trucks. So at least you can get up to 82,000 pounds for your capacity. So even though your tractor is a little bit heavier, you can still have, if it's within 2,000 pounds heavier, you still have the same capacity for your load, and you're paid by load when you're trucking. So the load is important. If you're going to have batteries on top in your trailer as well as your tractor, you just lose a lot of load. And also then you make your trailer more valuable. And sometimes, truckers, depending on, again, on the type of trucking, you're going to switch trailer all the time. So, and that adds complexity at the connection level, but also at the logistic level of like who owns a trailer that's assisted. So if it's all within a company's own distribution system, and the total capacity will never exceed 82,000 pounds, regardless of the tractor capacity, yes, it could make sense if you have very long haul. But in the case of the Tesla Semi, like I said, already has a decent 325 miles or 500 miles of range, depending on the capacity. So you don't really need that.
All right. In a few months, BYD is opening an EV factory in Hungary with 200,000 EV yearly capacity. How big an impact do you expect this to have on the European EV market? What do you think?
Huge impact, huge impact, because I think BYD is in the amongst the Chinese automakers that still have the biggest tariffs in Europe. So they all have different tariffs based on it's a negotiation with the EU, and how much are these seem to be backed by the Chinese government. Though there might be some changes on that, because they are looking at the price added instead of overall tariffs. But BYD, if BYD set up production for 200,000 units in Hungary, they're gonna produce their vehicles that are most likely to sell in Europe, and then they're gonna sell them in Europe. So they're gonna price them in a way that makes sense for the European market, and they are most likely gonna do well, and it's gonna take sales from other people.
All right. Two questions. One, Fred, how has the BYD Shark been? We've seen some social media driving around the pickup around Mexico. He says he lives in New Mexico and has been contemplating just driving down to Old Mexico and taking a look. And then two, thoughts on Ford's video this week about the future truck.
Yeah, I mean the video of the truck, I looked at it pretty closely, but it's not very high on details that's telling us about the actual vehicle. It's more about the approach of making it like focus on efficiency, which I think is the way to go if you want the cheapest vehicle possible. Make it as efficient as possible, and then you're gonna have less battery in there, and the battery is a big part of your cost. So all these things make sense to me. For the BYD Shark, I'm loving it. It's the more I drive it, I'm not. If you guys know me, I'm not big on PHEVs, and the plugins are not really my thing. But first of all, here in Tulum specifically, an all-electric vehicle will not make sense just based on the charging infrastructure. It's just not there. Electricity is also pretty expensive. It is improving. Like last time I was in Tulum was like 3 years ago, and the place is not recognizable. It's growing so fast. It's being gentrified like crazy. But I saw the first I saw they're building a giant, like still Costco size looking. It's not Costco, but it's in the same like membership type of mega store, and I saw that they are building charging station there. So they're definitely going that way slowly, but it's the only one I've seen. I've seen maybe a few hotels that have Tesla destination charger, and that's it. So like right now I'm in an Airbnb. Like last week I was in another Airbnb, and I could plug my BYD Shark if I parked it just perfectly and just make that cable reach an outlet. This one I have, like I'm in a bigger building and there's just no way I can charge it, so I cannot charge it. So it's not ideal. And if you're not charging your PHEV, then it's basically a gas truck that's a little bit more efficient. But if you are using it correctly, you do get about 100 kilometers of range out of it, and closer to 600 800 depending on your efficiency, with a full tank of gas. So I do see like this truck or this type of truck in the US being a potential solution, at least a bridge solution to electrifying the US market faster. Like I said with Slate earlier, you need solution for the pickup market to be electrified. And I think that would be a way to help these truck buyers get, dip their toes in the EV market. Because most of the time, if you're using your truck to go to work and your work is less than 100 kilometers, you're going to get there on all electric. And then if on the weekend you need to tow your boat to go to the lake or something, you can do it with the gas, and you're still going to be pretty efficient at the end of the day. So I think it's a great solution.
Yeah, and obviously Ford has thought that, hey, PHEVs might be good for pickups.
Yeah, they're starting to look at that too.
Any chance Elon's just lying about 10 days? I think you could probably just stop about any chance Elon's just lying is pretty good.
Yep, chances are pretty good.
FSD continues to improve. Who decides when it becomes officially level 3 or 4? Is that Tesla or the government?
Well, both. Tesla needs to have the balls to take responsibility for the system at either of those levels, and then get it approved by the government. After that, system is, it's pretty easy to do. There's a limit on deployment and everything, but in terms of getting the system approved, it's not that difficult. The reason Tesla, I keep fighting with the Tesla fans on this, like the bottleneck right now, it's not like it's there's only one bottleneck, and it's safety. Tesla is not doing that because they're not at the safety level that would make sense to deploy that. If they deploy it right now without supervision, whether in certain condition like 3 or full conditions, except rare edge cases like level 4, the crash rate would be insane, and Tesla would go bankrupt within weeks due to bad press and lawsuits. So that's why they're doing that. And from what I'm seeing right now, they could that could be the case already, just longer term based on the existing accident that we know. So yeah, not happening right now. Despite the FSD improvement, like I love my FSD. It's great technology. Just it's not what I was sold. That's it.
Carl in San Diego says Trump's tariffs were illegal. SCOTUS ruled that today. I saw yeah, that's just everything. Always.
You know what I thought about that today? I was like, that was probably always the plan, right?
Right, because they give money to the businesses.
Yeah, because technically the businesses pay the tariffs, so they're going to be the ones that get all the refunds. But we know from the studies that they pass the tariffs prices to the consumers at a rate of between 90 and 95%, depending on the market. Some of them, they swallowed it, but for the most part, the consumer paid it. But now they are not going to be under any obligation whatsoever to then reimburse the difference to the consumer. So it's a nice, big, fat gift to the companies, to Wall Street, and to all of that. While the consumer just paid $150 billion more. And then you learn about Commerce Secretary Lutnick, who's also, by the way, a BFF with Elon Musk. Elon Musk got him his job. Elon wanted him to be Secretary of Treasury, and he couldn't get him that, but he ended up being Commerce. You learned that his firm, Kentor, who's, by the way, a big Tesla investor, started buying out the refund rights for pennies on the dollars for companies. So they knew that it was not enforceable, and they're like, all right, I'm gonna make a few bucks with that. It's government of the government of the corrupt, by the corrupt, for the corrupt. Yeah.
And that's it for today.
That's it on the Business Entertainment. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for everyone for listening to the Electrek podcast this week. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please give us a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe, whatever it is on the app you're watching. It helped the show more than you think. It takes a second to do, and it's free. And we're going to see you same time, same place next week. I'm going to be back in Quebec. All right.